You ever walk away from a conversation and think, what just happened? You replay it over and over again in your head. You were calm, you were patient, you were kind, and somehow you still ended up feeling confused, guilty, or small. It's like your logic got hijacked mid-sentence. Let me tell you something. That feeling you're describing, that's not confusion, that's conditioning. Because when you talk to someone who thrives on control, a covert narcissist, a manipulator, or worse, a psychopath, they don't argue to understand you. They argue to unravel you. Their goal isn't clarity, it's chaos. Their power doesn't come from being right. It comes from watching you second guess yourself. And listen, I've been there. You can be the most self-aware person in the room, the calmest one, the one who reads all the books and knows all the red flags, and still find yourself sitting in your car after a conversation, gripping the steering wheel, trying to figure out why you feel like you're the problem. Here's the truth. You're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You're not overreacting. You're responding to emotional manipulation that's been expertly disguised as conversation. See, words are energy. Every person carries a frequency when they speak. You can hear kindness. You can feel respect. But you can also sense when something's off, when the words sound reasonable, but the tone, the pacing, the undertone make your body tighten just a little bit. That tightening, that's your intuition whispering, this isn't safe. What we're talking about today, this idea of learning to hear the truth beneath the words, it's not about psychology, textbooks, or labels. This is about power. Your power, because when you learn to listen differently, you stop getting played. You stop explaining yourself to people who already decided not to understand you. You stop chasing closure from conversations that were designed to keep you stuck. You stop mistaking verbal gymnastics for emotional intimacy. And that, my friend, is when everything begins to shift. Because once you can hear manipulation in someone's tone, once you recognize the difference between sincerity and strategy, you don't need to confront them. You don't need to fix them. You don't even need to expose them. You simply stop participating. Today, I'm going to teach you how to do that. I'm going to show you how to hear the difference, not between good and bad people, but between healthy and harmful energy. We'll look at 7 clear, undeniable signs that you can hear in one conversation that tell you exactly who you're dealing with. So if you've ever felt like you were arguing with someone who spoke in riddles, if you've ever walked away from a talk feeling drained instead of understood, this is your turning point. Because you can't always see manipulation, but you can always hear it. And once you hear it clearly, you can take your power back quietly. You can hear empathy, and you can hear the absence of it. Let me say that again. You can hear empathy, not in the words, in the weight behind them. When someone truly has empathy, their voice slows down when they talk about pain. Their energy softens. You can feel that they see you, that they care. But when someone doesn't, when they're faking it, when they're using emotion as a tool instead of a truth, something feels off. The words sound right, but the tone feels hollow. A covert narcissist will talk about pain like it's theater. They'll share stories that sound emotional, but if you listen carefully, it's not about healing. It's about harvesting sympathy. It's always about what was done to them, never about what they've learned. You'll hear it in phrases like, I just can't believe people treat me this way. I'm always the one who gives and never gets anything back. And what happens? You lean in. You comfort them. You think, wow, they've been through so much. But before you know it, you're managing their emotions while they're manipulating yours. Now, a psychopath, different story. They'll talk about pain like they're describing the weather, cold, flat, detached. People get hurt. It happens. Yeah, that's just how the world works. They're not looking for comfort. They're signaling dominance. The covert narcissist uses pain to control your compassion. The psychopath uses pain to control your fear. 2 sides of the same coin. One plays the victim, the other plays the observer. Both make you feel small. And here's the test. After they talk, check in with your body. If you feel guilty for feeling good or wrong for feeling peaceful, that's your sign. Because real empathy doesn't drain you, it grounds you. When someone uses their pain, honestly, it creates connection. You leave that conversation feeling lighter, stronger, more human. But when someone weaponizes their pain, you leave feeling responsible for fixing them. And that's not connection, that's control. Your job isn't to diagnose people. Your job is to listen differently, because here's what most people miss. Manipulation doesn't start with cruelty. It starts with stories. Stories that are designed to hook your compassion before they take your clarity. So the next time you're in a conversation that feels heavy, don't rush to comfort. Pause, listen to how they talk about pain. Are they owning it or performing it? Because that one distinction, that tiny difference in tone, is how you start protecting your peace. And remember this, when someone uses pain as a performance, you'll feel guilty. When someone uses pain as truth, you'll feel safe. Your body knows the difference. Trust it. Every person you meet is talking to you for a reason. Some people talk to connect, some people talk to understand, and some people talk to control. Let me break this down for you, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. A covert narcissist and a psychopath may sound similar at first. They both use charm. They both use words like tools. But the motivation behind their words, that's the tell. That's the entire game. A covert narcissist needs admiration. They need you to see them as special, the most misunderstood, the most giving, the one who cares more than anyone else. They feed off your validation. They say things like, I guess I just care too much. No one ever appreciates what I do. You're the only person who gets me. Sound familiar? It's not just flattery, it's recruitment. They're pulling you into their orbit so you'll feed the one thing they can't generate themselves worth. Now, a psychopath, entirely different motive. They don't want admiration, they want advantage. They study you like a blueprint. They're not playing for sympathy, they're playing for strategy. Their sentences are efficient, emotionless, and purposeful. People respond to power. You just have to know what someone wants. I don't get attached. It's inefficient. Hear the difference? One is emotionally needy. The other is emotionally empty. One manipulates to feel special. The other manipulates to stay in control. And this is where most people get stuck, because both can sound confident. Both can sound intelligent. But confidence without compassion is not strength. It's manipulation in a mask. When you talk to a covert narcissist, you'll feel like you're constantly trying to comfort them, explain to them, make them feel better. When you talk to a psychopath, you'll feel like you're constantly being measured, assessed, and outmaneuvered. Here's the difference in energy. With a covert narcissist, you feel guilty for not doing enough. With a psychopath, you feel anxious that you've said too much. And both reactions, guilt and anxiety, are the emotional signatures of control. Now, I want you to try something the next time you feel that tug in a conversation. Pause, take a breath, and ask yourself one simple question. Do I feel inspired or inspected? Because that question will tell you everything. If you feel inspired, that person is safe energy. They want connection, not control. If you feel inspected, that person is collecting information. They're building a file in their mind labeled how to use this later. You don't need to call it out. You don't need to confront it. Just note it. When you know someone's motive, you stop giving them your power. You can't change why someone speaks, but you can choose what you hear. And when you start listening, not just to their words, but to their reason for speaking, you start to reclaim your peace. Because once you understand the motivation matrix, you realize something life-changing. Most people don't want your truth. They want your reaction. So stop giving them what they want. Start giving yourself what you need: distance, clarity, and calm. You want to know one of the fastest ways to tell who you're dealing with? Listen to how they tell their stories. Because the truth about people who manipulate is that they love to talk. They love to explain, justify, and narrate their lives like they're the main character in a drama they never seem to escape. And you know what's missing in almost every one of those stories? Ownership. Let me say that again. The one thing that separates a healthy person from a manipulator is ownership. A covert narcissist will tell you a story that sounds emotional, dramatic, detailed, and it always ends with them being the misunderstood hero. Every friend betrayed them. Every partner was cruel. Every boss was unfair. Every ex was toxic. And every story ends the same way. They're the victim who tried their best. Listen closely. You'll hear this pattern over and over. I did everything right, but I tried to help, but they never appreciated me. I gave so much, and this is how they repay me. Notice the direction. All the blame points outward. Every they becomes the villain in a movie where the narcissist is the star. Now, when a psychopath tells a story, the energy shifts. They don't play the victim. They play the puppet master. They were useful until they weren't. It was just business. You have to be 2 steps ahead. They don't need your sympathy. They want your silence, because silence gives them room to keep winning. And this is where most people get trapped. You get caught between wanting to comfort the narcissist and wanting to reason with the psychopath. Both are traps, because neither one is having a real conversation. They're performing. Let me teach you something that will change how you hear people forever. When someone tells you a story, count the pronouns. Yes, I said count them. If you hear a lot of I, me, my used as victim language, you're probably dealing with a covert narcissist who's rewriting history to win sympathy. If you hear a lot of they, them, those people, and the tone is detached, superior, or amused, you're probably dealing with someone who sees people as chess pieces, not humans. Healthy people own their part. They say, yeah, I could have handled that differently. I see now where I went wrong. I learned something from that experience. That's ownership. That's humility. That's growth. Manipulators can't do that because ownership means accountability, and accountability kills their power. So here's what I want you to start doing. The next time someone tells you a story that leaves you feeling uneasy, take 5 seconds, literally. Count down with me. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then replay that story in your mind and do this one thing. Replace every they with I. If the story still makes sense, you're hearing truth. If it collapses, you're hearing blame. And I know that's hard to admit, because when you love someone who does this, you want to believe their stories. You want to believe that their pain explains their behavior. But truth isn't in how much emotion they show. Truth is in how much responsibility they take. You don't have to argue. You don't have to point it out. Just listen differently. Let them talk and let their lack of ownership tell you everything. Because ownership is the fingerprint of self-awareness. And when it's missing, you're not hearing a confession, you're hearing a performance. And that's your cue. That's when you stop defending, stop justifying, stop fixing, and start protecting your peace. Let's talk about the moment that fools almost everybody, the apology. Because here's what happens. They hurt you. They lie. They twist. They gaslight. You finally pull back. You draw a line. You say, enough. And that's when they show up with 3 little words that knock the wind out of you. I'm so sorry. And your heart, the part of you that wants to believe people can change, leaps to attention because you want to believe them. You want to believe that maybe they finally see what they did. You want to believe that this time the apology means something. But let me save you years of pain. Not all apologies are equal. Real remorse is specific. Manipulative remorse is vague. Let's break that down. A covert narcissist apologizes to calm you down, not to change themselves. They'll say things like, I'm sorry you felt that way. I didn't mean for you to take it like that. Let's just move on. Okay? Sounds gentle, right? Sounds mature? It's not. Because what they're actually saying is, your feelings are the problem, not my behavior. They'll sprinkle it with guilt too. I can't believe you think I'd ever hurt you. I guess nothing I do is enough for you. And you start doubting yourself again. That's not an apology. That's a performance. Now, a psychopath handles apology like a transaction. They don't fake guilt, they fake logic. They'll say, mistakes happen. Let's not dwell. It's done. What do you want me to do about it now? We all do things we regret. There's no heart, no emotion, just efficiency. And you walk away wondering why you still feel cold. Because real remorse warms the room. Fake remorse freezes it. Here's the 3-point test I want you to remember. Write it down, tattoo it on your mind, because it will save your peace. Specific behavior acknowledgement. I said X, and it was wrong. Not if or but. Not, I'm sorry you felt hurt. I did this. That's step 1. Emotional ownership. I can see how that made you feel unseen or disrespected. Real empathy sees you. Manipulators see themselves. Behavior correction plan. Here's what I'm going to do differently next time. Without that, it's not an apology, it's an audition. And here's what you've got to understand. A person who truly regrets their actions doesn't just want forgiveness. They want change. They want to repair, not reset. So if you hear someone saying, let's move on, but they're doing the same thing next week, that's not change. That's a cycle. And you break the cycle by stopping participation. You don't have to scream. You don't have to prove you're right. You just have to stop rewarding words that aren't backed by behavior, because a real apology has action verbs, not adjectives. I'm sorry means nothing if I'll do better never shows up. So here's what I want you to do. The next time you get an apology that doesn't sit right, pause, count down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then ask yourself this simple question. Did they take responsibility, or did they just take control of the conversation? If the answer is the second one, walk away with your peace intact, because you don't need more words. You need consistency. You need evidence. You need change. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to a fake apology is nothing at all. You want to know who someone really is? Say no. That's it. One word. No long explanations. No soft landings. No sugarcoating. Just no. Because no is truth in its purest form. And it's the one thing manipulators cannot stand. Here's what happens when you say it. A healthy person will pause. They might ask questions. They'll respect your space, even if they don't like it. But a manipulator, a covert narcissist, a psychopath, they will show you who they are the second you draw that line. A covert narcissist reacts to your boundary like you just betrayed them. After everything I've done for you? Wow, you've really changed. I was just trying to help. They twist your no into guilt. They turn your peace into proof that you're cold, selfish, or cruel. Why? Because your boundary reminds them they're not in control anymore. And a psychopath, they don't do guilt, they do games. They'll look you dead in the eye and say, your choice. Fine, do what you want. And then they'll quietly look for another way in, through charm, through pity, through pressure. That's how you know you've hit the truth, when your boundary triggers their tactics. Listen to me. You do not owe anyone comfort at the cost of your sanity. A boundary is not aggression. It's protection. It's not selfish. It's sacred. And when you enforce it, people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always call it disrespect. But that doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're free. Now, I know it's hard. You feel the pull to explain, to soften, to defend your no. That's the conditioning talking. The part of you that's been trained to keep the peace, even when it costs you your own. So I want to teach you something that will help you stand firm. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 boundary reset. When the panic rises, when the guilt creeps in, do this. 5, notice your heartbeat. You're safe. 4, feel your feet. You're grounded. 3, name what's real. I'm not in danger. I'm allowed to say no. Dose. Take a deep breath. 1, speak once, clearly, without justification. That's it. 1 sentence. You don't owe a PowerPoint presentation on why you're protecting yourself, because people who respect you won't need an explanation, and people who need control won't accept one. When you say no and someone gets angry, pay attention. You just found the price tag of your peace. So stop negotiating your boundaries with people who profit from your guilt. You are not rude for protecting your energy. You are not cold for choosing peace. You are not selfish for saving yourself. Every time you hold your boundary, you reteach the world how to treat you. And yes, some people will leave. Let them, because the ones who truly care about you won't be offended by your strength. They'll respect it. Your body never lies. It always tells the truth long before your mind catches up. You want to know if a person is safe for you? Don't listen to their words. Listen to your body after they leave the room, because every interaction leaves a signature, an emotional fingerprint on your nervous system. Some people leave you feeling light, seen, grounded. Others leave you spinning, second guessing, exhausted. That's not coincidence. That's chemistry. That's energy. When you've been in a conversation with a covert narcissist, you'll notice something subtle but unmistakable. You feel drained. Your mind replays every word. You question your tone, your choice of words, your reactions. You start apologizing to yourself for things you didn't even do. And underneath it all is a quiet guilt, guilt for not being more understanding, guilt for setting boundaries, guilt for protecting yourself. That's their emotional signature. They don't take your energy in one big grab. They drip drain it through guilt, confusion, and subtle blame. Now, the psychopath leaves a different mark. You don't feel guilty. You feel hollow, empty, flat, like the emotional color has been turned down. You're not sad. You're not angry. You're just blank. And that numbness, that's your body's defense mechanism saying, I'm not safe expressing emotion around this person. That's the emotional freeze of survival. Here's what I want you to understand. Your body will always react faster than your logic. If you leave a conversation feeling smaller, it's not because you're too sensitive. It's because someone just fed off your energy. A healthy conversation fills your lungs. You breathe deeper. You feel clear, connected, calm. A toxic conversation shortens your breath. You feel tight in your chest, heavy in your shoulders, maybe even a little dizzy. That's your intuition trying to tap you on the shoulder, saying, hey, something's wrong here. You don't need to overanalyze it. You just need to trust it, because your nervous system has better judgment than your heart when it comes to manipulation. Here's a simple tool. I call it the energy scale. After every difficult interaction, pause and ask yourself, on a scale from +3 to -3, how do I feel right now? +3 means peaceful and strong. 0 means neutral. -3 means anxious, confused, or drained. Do this for 1 week. You'll start to see patterns. And those patterns will tell you exactly who's safe for your soul and who's feeding on it. Because here's the truth. The people meant for you will bring you peace, not confusion. You won't need to rehearse what you said. You won't need to justify your boundaries. You won't need to shrink to be understood. So stop listening for the perfect words. Start listening to your body. It will tell you when energy is being exchanged and when it's being stolen. And when you feel that peace return, that deep exhale that only comes when you're around someone genuine, hold on to that. That's what safety feels like. That's what real connection sounds like. That's what healing feels like in your body. Because the truth is simple. A narcissist steals your confidence. A psychopath steals your color. But your awareness, that gives it all back. If you really want to know who someone is, don't look at how they act when things are easy. Look at how they react when you call them out, because feedback, that simple moment when you hold up a mirror, reveals everything. A healthy person might flinch. They might get uncomfortable. They might even get defensive for a second, but then they breathe. They reflect. They own it. They say, you're right. I can see how that hurt you. That's emotional maturity. That's growth. But when you give feedback to a covert narcissist, watch what happens. They'll act shocked, hurt, offended. They'll say things like, wow, I didn't expect that from you. You're really going to turn on me now? After everything I've done, this is how you repay me? They twist accountability into betrayal. They make your honesty sound like cruelty. And before you know it, you're apologizing for telling the truth. That's the test. Because people who truly want to change don't punish you for pointing out the problem. Now, a psychopath plays it differently. They won't show hurt, they'll show calculation. They'll tilt their head, maybe even smile, and say, "Interesting perspective. You've been thinking about this a lot, huh?" They're not reflecting, they're studying. They're already planning their counter. They see feedback as threat, and threats must be neutralized. So they do one of two things. They either go cold and distant to punish you with silence, or they go warm and charming to make you doubt you ever needed to speak up in the first place. Both are control, just two different flavors. Here's the truth you have to face. If someone reacts to accountability with guilt trips, blame, or punishment, you're not in a relationship. You're in a power struggle you'll never win. So stop arguing with people who use your honesty as ammunition. You don't need to explain. You don't need to convince. You just need to observe. Because when you give someone feedback and they retaliate instead of reflect, you've just learned everything you need to know. I call this the feedback fire drill. Use it like a test. Step back before explaining. Don't rush to soften your truth. Just state what happened and pause. Document words, not emotions. Listen for what they say, not how loudly. Predict their next two responses. If you already know they'll deny, deflect, or reverse blame, that's your pattern. And pattern awareness is power, because once you see the pattern, you stop taking it personally. You stop trying to change them and start changing your response. You can't teach accountability to someone who sees it as an attack, but you can protect your peace by not engaging in their defense. Healthy people reflect. Manipulators retaliate. That's the line in the sand. So if you're constantly being punished for asking for respect, if every time you speak up, you end up apologizing, hear me clearly. You're not too much. You're just with someone who can't handle the truth. And that is not your problem to fix. Your only job is to keep standing in truth, because that's where your peace and your power live. You've heard a lot today. You've seen how words can heal or harm, connect or control. But here's the truth that matters most. You don't win by diagnosing them. You win by listening differently, because the real power was never in labeling someone a narcissist or a psychopath. It was in realizing that you no longer have to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You can't fix someone who uses confusion as a weapon. You can't reach someone who uses your empathy as leverage. And you can't find peace inside a conversation built on manipulation. But you can choose silence. You can choose distance. You can choose clarity. And when you do, everything shifts. You stop rehearsing your side of the story. You stop chasing closure that will never come. You stop trying to convince people who only listen to win, not understand. That's when the fog lifts. That's when peace enters. That's when you remember you're not powerless. You were just distracted. They never actually held real control. They only borrowed yours. Every guilt trip, every twisted argument, every circular conversation was designed to make you forget who you are. But you're remembering now. You're starting to hear again, not just what people say, but what your body says. Not just what's spoken out loud, but what's spoken in silence. And let me tell you something, that silence, that's your superpower, because silence is not weakness, it's control. It's strength disguised as peace. You don't need to prove you're strong. You don't need to show how much you've healed. You just need to live like someone who finally understands that peace is not something you chase, it's something you protect. So from this moment forward, every conversation you have, listen differently. Listen with your body. Listen with your intuition. Listen for truth, not performance. And if you walk away feeling lighter, that's your sign to lean in. If you walk away feeling smaller, that's your cue to let go. You don't owe anyone your energy. You don't owe anyone your constant explanation. You owe yourself peace. And peace begins the moment you stop reacting and start hearing clearly. Because clarity is peace. And peace, that's power.